EU4 was released on the 13th of August in 2013, which at this point is well over 11 years ago, and certainly didn't release in the version that we all know and love today. And given how frequently people like me bring up the power creep of EU4, which certainly did occur, well, that's not to say that EU4 didn't see its fair share of nerfs too. So for this video, I'm going to go back to the earliest actually runnable version of EU4, aka patch 1.4.1, since earlier patches are so broken they straight up don't even launch, so oldest runnable version of EU4 to be clear, and take that opportunity to look around, see how far we've come, and indeed to bring back the old EU4 idea groups, pre all the balance changes into the modern game in the form of a mod. Now before we go off on this, for lack of a better word, adventure, we have to do a quick intermission. A like on the video would be appreciated, and a subscription would be incredible. The support has been insane yet again in these past few months, so let's keep that going, and let's get up to the next 1k target defeated. For 41k is now right around the corner. With that self-shitting all said and done though, let's load into this wonderful world of 2013 EU4. And I mean, here we are, so far nothing too unusual. The map of Europe is still Europe, that's still looking fine. Let's pop into single player, because I doubt there'll be many lobbies up. And immediately we can see the default map mode is terrain. Ah, wonderful. Let's go back to political, and here it is. Here's old EU4. Pink Morocco, Portugal's green, big Algiers, just true art. A Unite Bavaria Day 1, whatever's going on here with Bohemia, yeah. Needless to say, there's been a lot of updates with a lot of provinces getting added, and as provinces get added, of course, the map gets changed and becomes more accurate. This is also a time of, well, square Memel. Here it is. Here's Memel. Here's the square. But with, of course, any kind of game that goes this far back, there's going to be some, shall we say, fascinating balance moments. Prussian ideas, for example, which are only available to this 3-province Brandenburg, beautiful, are very balanced. So Brandenburg nowadays starts with Brandenburg ideas, and they only get Prussian ideas as they form Prussia. But back in the day, and until relatively recently as well, Brandenburg actually just straight up started with Prussian ideas. And Prussian ideas, of course, not only give you some Medium tradition, they finish with 20% discipline and 20 morale of armies. And I mean, they still have the 20 ICA, but yeah, 20% discipline. Yeah. The United Hansa, that was a thing, so they started with Lübeck, Hamburg, Bremen, and so on, so that was neat. And Albania is out there, it's probably the genuinely most insane start in this version of EU4. As sure, you do start with Skanderbeg himself, but you have the default national ideas, you don't start with a Venice guarantee, and you're at war defending against the starting Ottomans, which, by the way, in this version of E4, open with 10 discipline, as well as 33% core creation cost, which again is absolutely insane. And for record as well, your economy score is 0 compared to the Ottomans of 4, so yeah. Not a good start, not a good start for Skanderbeg over here, considering again you have literally just one province. The world map really has gone through quite a few changes as well. I mean, whatever these borders are is ugly. The Manchu tribes start united. Ava and I guess Shan kind of run this whole situation. Bengal has like 5 provinces total for it, and India has, shall we say, a lot less land. Marwar starts with just 1 province for the entire area, after all. Meanwhile, Madagascar's 3 provinces, and Mahafale doesn't even exist. God, the blessed timeline. And the Native American tribes are, yeah, Aztec, Zapotec, and Maya. As well as the, quite literally in some cases, unplayable Native American tribes over here. Dear God alive, good luck if you ever want to partake in this kind of gaming. But look, here's Kado. We've certainly come a long way from the fact that Japan quite literally used to exist, so the Shogun would just be Japan, and all of these vassals didn't have unique Sengoku Jidai mechanics, they were just vassals of the Shogun day 1, with no other mechanics, they were just conventional vassals. Art. And look, So's not even a province. They're just a part of the Uchi vassal. Anyway, as we get back into Europe, I'm going to go on Austria, because Austria, on top of everything, has a beautiful -1 interest per annum, and I'll show you how that gets interesting in a bit. But they also have +5 dip rep, which in this version of the game is absolutely insane. And for some reason they don't start with a province they should have. Here we're next to Baden, but you know what? I didn't make the map. Anyway, let's pop into Austria and let's take a look through the beautiful game as it is. I'm default put into the terrain map mode. Now, if you are going to do this at home, another quick reminder, the custom map mode, or the ability to make custom map modes, is not in the game yet. So if you do go back to this version of EU4, all your custom map mode setup is going to be deleted. This is just a preemptive warning if you're doing that. And also, units don't have Ks next to them, and forts aren't like a thing, apart from being a thing, so every province has a fort level associated with it that you have to like siege out. So yeah, there's not real carpet sieging, but there's also is carpet sieging, basically. Buildings cost mana, there's no dev clicks, provinces have a base tax value for their development, and that's about it. And yeah, absolute art all around. There's even some buildings that got removed that are quite unused now. Like the Fine Arts Academy giving you stab cost, neat. Or the Admiralty for Yeli Navy Tradition, a leader without upkeep. I'm not gonna lie, the War College seems pretty good. The terrain icons are mostly unchanged for those wondering, the mountains are still the same, but Venice is a plain tile, which is fascinating, and the coastline tiles looks very non-EU4. Like, I don't know where this art went, but it's actually kind of cool. I quite like this coastline art, but it looks a bit too much like a sea tile, I guess. I also do love how Liège is like entirely encircled within Burgundy. Like Burgundy entirely just encircles this thing, and of course Burgundy doesn't start with those personal unions, so they're just giga strong in this time period. No, just as a quick preamble look around at how far we've come, and more specifically, how much of this stuff we've balanced, because dear God alive. Now, for the record, better relations over time is just improved relations. That was elaborated into improved relations instead of better relations over time. Even though I think better relations over time kind of explains the concept better to some extent, but I guess it's a longer title. I don't know. They made a decision, they stuck with it, and I think being consistent is important as well. Pretty standard stuff, Imperial Authority, Fort Defense, nothing cares, but hey, a -1 interest per annum. Now bear this one in mind for this -1 interest per annum, because you'll get interesting later. +5 dip rep, Missionary Strength of Toss, True Faith, nothing bad. +2 dip relations and 30% reinforcement speed. Yeah, once you start seeing these ideas, it gets interesting. Now, one thing to bear in mind is they haven't invented the concept of limited idea groups. So if you want to take 5 military idea groups, you can. And with 8 idea groups to go for the entire game, while only 15 are unlocked, you're going to unlock literally over half of the possible idea groups in a game you're going to have. As a quick review of just going through these real quick, Innovative Ideas has -2 Yeti Army and Navy Tradition decay, and -25 Merc cost, which is absolutely busted because this isn't even a Merc cost, and this is an idea group and a dip in an admin group. And again, -25% advisor cost is very nice. Religious Ideas finish with +50% improved relations, which is ridiculously good, but also not the funny CB that we expect. You get that right at the start, which is fascinating. Espionage Ideas is a very espionage utility thing, which may sabotage reputation, may not be great, and neither is May sow discontent. But I'm going to have to say, May Infiltrate Administration is actually really nice to go for an MP, because you have to see all the enemy movements if you're Infiltrate Administration. The fact that this ability is now locked away behind technology, and technology that no one ever gets to this late, means that the ability of quote-unquote revealing enemy troop positions is just not a thing that's usually available to you, unless you get like a random obscure event of one of the advisors becoming a turncoat. But here's where the fun begins. Economic Ideas says -1 interest per annum, as does administrative. So going administrative economic, as someone like Austria, means you have access to burger loans forever now, because you have -3 interest per annum. And again, things like -10 land maintenance and the absolutely busted -20% build costs are all available here. Erman gets the 25% core creation cost relatively early, and has insane -25% merc reduction cost, merc maintenance costs, and 50% more available mercs, aka... Well, remember, there's no merc company, so mercenaries are just a unit that you can build that's more expensive, that at the same time doesn't use manpower, so yeah. Remember everyone telling you to never build mercenary cannons because they're stupidly expensive? Indeed. Diplomatic Ideas doesn't have province war score cost because, you know, that hasn't been invented as a modifier yet, but it kind of makes up with it with a permanent CB against other government types, which, by the way, as a modifier is actually still in the game, just it's not used like anywhere, so yeah, you can pick this up. As well as +2 dip relations, and of course, another +5 dip rep. And with the cost of reducing war exhaustion by 33% here, which can again be joined with aristocratic, -20% here. Yeah, you can basically reduce war exhaustion for like half price with diplomatic aristocratic, which is fascinating. And the classic lower impact on stability from diplomatic actions is quite literally unchanged for Diplomatic Ideas since forever. Nothing too unusual in trade, some trade steering, although national trade income modifier and trade efficiency, I thought these two would be the same. I think they end up getting unified. This modifier literally does not exist in the game anymore. And the big thing I will say is Maritime doesn't exist. And on the topic of naval ideas, if you want people to take them, don't make it a mill group. There are much better mill groups to take, and in MP people are not really, going to be sacrificing their army quality just to get some naval buffs. So making it a diplomatic group that everyone has quote-unquote at least half access to makes it a lot more viable, especially when you've basically merged the thing with Maritime as well. Naval having 25 morale of navies, 50 naval force limit, a yearly naval tradition pip, 2 naval leader maneuver, and -20% ship costs, followed up with ships repairing in coastal provinces, makes naval ideas insanely busted even by the standards of the current busted idea groups, considering the fact again it's not a military group. And expansion ideas are surprisingly kind of sad. I mean, you do get an extra colonist, but only 10 global settlers, when things like exploration give you 33. And I guess the extra merchant's nice, but the main thing is out of expansion that I thought was cool was the +3 dip rep you get from experienced diplomats, which is not what I expected to see in expansion ideas, but here we are. They are very generous with dip rep in this game. But the coup de grace, the absolute beauty that is the military idea groups. 20% off cavalry for aristocratic is already putting Horde out of business, but while the hostile procreation costing us is a bit whatever, you get 25% manpower from aristocratic, a leader shock pip, a diplomat, which is a bit whatever, cost of reducing war exhaustion, again, can be nice, and the 10% miltech cost, which I think, ironically enough, outside of doing funny cav builds, because it's finished with 10% cav combat ability, aristocratic may not be great, but the fact that something that has 20% cav cost reduction and 10 cav combat ability is considered meh, as well as, 25% manpower, just goes to show how dumbly powerful a lot of the other things get. For example, Forced March isn't a mechanic yet unless you finish Offensive Ideas, which gives you Forced March. But Offensive also gives you a Leader Shock, a Leader Fire, Leader Maneuver pip, 25% manpower again, prestige from battles, whatever, 25 Force Limit, and of course the beautiful 10% Discipline. This gives you 10% Discipline. Offensive Ideas. Absolutely stunning idea group. But wait, it gets better somehow. Defensive has +1 yearly army tradition, just off the bat, comes with 25 morale. 2 ideas in. You can go 2 ideas in and grab 25% morale of armies. Grab a leader siege pip in defensive. Shouldn't this be an offensive? How is this not in the other one? Anyway, you get -10 land maintenance. You get 33% fort defense. I mean, this is all relatively the same. These are actually pretty unchanged. And the attrition for enemies. But again, you have a leader siege pip and 25 morale of armies. What's going on here? And the 10 land maintenance, I believe this is knocked down to 5 because this is super strong if you stack with something like, oh, I don't know, economic and later quantity. But either way, we haven't exactly arrived at the main show here. Quality ideas. 10 ICA, 10 cav combat ability, 10 artillery combat ability, you've seen it all. Recover army and recover navy morale speed, that's neat. Cavalry, galley combat ability. Sorry, heavy ship combat ability, okay, that's neat. Light ship combat ability, okay, that's kind of whatever, no one cares. You get 15 discipline. Quality ideas gives you 15 discipline on the finisher. Of course it does. This is peak balance. For those wondering, indeed, that does mean that quality offensive Prussia does run around the game with 20 plus 10, 30 plus 15, 45% discipline after 2 idea groups. But don't worry, there's also quantity. 50 national manpower, -10% cav, infantry, and artillery, as well as ship cost. So here's the artillery and ship cost, and -10 land maintenance. So this is effectively -20% land maintenance, because bear in mind, infantry cost reduces all cost. And of course, 20% manpower recovery, followed up with 33% of force limit. Quantity as well, sitting as an absolute monster for just building big army. These idea groups are insanely busted, and the fact that they got nerfed is just a good thing, because again, it would make the game almost trivially easy running around with modifiers like that, but it also means that if the AI ever does open defensive, it can genuinely ruin your day. So with that said, let's bring these ideas into modern EU4. Oh, and but before we do that, just a couple more cursed things. So you've seen Mem will be the square, but have you seen Galicia is 1 province? Kosovo is a wool mine. And speaking of trade goods, if we take a look at wool, as you can see, there's a supply and demand mechanic, which gets impacted by countries and their supply and demand for trade goods, making this a dynamic system that definitely does not create an insane amount of lag. It creates an insane amount of lag, that's why they got rid of it. It's actually a really advanced concept with a lot of cool stuff going on. I mean, it's frankly incredible. Oh, and Byzantium is a grain province. But to really win the Cursed Award, Cairo is the capital of the Mamluks, but it's also a coastal desert province. Oh, and for those wondering why Navarra has, naval things in their idea group, that's because Navarra is meant to be coastal. Anyway, I could spend way too long looking at this old version of EU4. Let's actually get into the proper EU4 that we all know and love, with all of this stuff quote-unquote fixed with the old ideas mod. So here we are back in vanilla EU4. So nice to be back. Look at this increased province count. Look at this Cairo, so not coastal. Look at this landlocked Navarra. They don't even have access to the coastline while have naval ideas. Look at Galicia being 4 provinces. Look at Memel not being a square. Look at Riga not touching Lithuania. Look at Japan not existing in 1444. With that said, let's now pop into Austria, where unfortunately our ideas no longer give us access to -1 interest per annum or +5 dip rep. However, we brought with us the old idea groups. Now immediately I have to make some concessions because we've had to make some changes. A couple modifiers just got renamed and got readjusted. So, for example, diplomatic ideas on the second one had time to fabricate claims, so I made that into cost to fabricate claims. I think that's relatively the same. However, for the case of espionage, for example, it is now not possible for modifiers that are available from technology, for example, the modifiers for can infiltrate administration, etc., to be unlocked with ideas. Initially, I had the idea of quite literally having like a placeholder idea group inside of where they would be unlocked to then have a triggered modifier that would give you that effect, but that also can't happen. Like, the game doesn't allow you to happen it. You can only get it from technology to unlock the, can infiltrate administration things, which was a bit of a shame. So espionage ideas I had to take the most creative liberty with, where I replaced the rumor mongering with claim duration plus 100%. It's a modifier in the base game, just not used in vanilla or frankly ever, because it's a bit whatever, claim duration, but hey, you know what, it's there now, you can enjoy it. As well as, of course, some rebel support efficiency for the can support rebels in the opposing land, and spy action cost modifier instead of the previous infiltrate administration thing. My apologies, basically, I don't want to leave it blank, but at the same time, that modifier literally was not possible to be carried over. Everything else has worked, like the 20% construction cost for economic ideas, as well as the -1 interest per annum. And I did have to change the plus 50% possible mercenaries to 50% mercenary manpower. I think that's a reasonable equivalence to carry them over here. There had to be a lot of other mini, shall we say, cleanups. So, for example, aristocratic, offensive, and so on were broken because this used to give a land leader shock +1, right? But the way that was coded back in version of 1.4 was leader underscore shock +1, and if you want to give a naval leader shock pip, it will be like naval leader shock pip +1. Now that got standardized in newer versions of EU4, where leader shock pip doesn't exist as a modifier. If you want to give a land leader shock, you have to give a land underscore leader underscore shock +1 instead of naval underscore leader underscore shock +1 and so on. So it's like, again, involved a bunch of cleanup, but it's as faithful as it could possibly be while literally still loading into the game, basically. So everything else is kept. Again, there are no policies, but defensive still gives you 25% morale of armies, a siege pip, and a Yeli army tradition, for example. And indeed, quality has that 10% discipline finisher. Now, another thing as well, of course, offensive ideas couldn't unlock force march. That's not a thing you can unlock. You can unlock the ability to force march for free, but you can't have it unlocked with just the ability itself within ideas, for example. As such, offensive now has 20% movement speed, which I think is the closest thing I can do to the ability of being able to force march. Is it equivalent? Absolutely not, but you know, we're just going to have to deal with that discussion. Just a heads up, it's one I had to make. If you hate this idea conceptually, just, I guess, make your own version of the model and don't use this one. You don't have to play this. But there we go. Everything else is here, including that -2% yearly armor tradition decay, and the really funny double -25% merc cost available for both administrative and innovative builds. And Austria would be really, really funny if they go for that +5 dip rep and become ultra diplomatic Austria. And then they probably want to pick up expansion ideas, which is a bit weird, but you know what, hey, anything for that dip rep. Right, so that's the idea groups. I've released this as a Steam mod. I'll be linking that down below in the description as before. For those that don't have access to Steam Workshop, I did also upload it to the Paradox mod launcher for those people playing on Epic, so you can get it from that if you also want it there. That is available for you. Both of those versions will be linked down below. And as part of the fun and games, I have been chatting with none other than Playmaker himself. If you haven't heard of him, there he goes. He actually plays this game while I just talk about it. Long and short of it, while nothing has been confirmed for this video itself, to be live by the time it's happening, I will be sending the mod off to him. And if you want to see the complete bustedness of these ideas played by someone that really knows how to play single-player EU4, well, that's something that you can enjoy by subscribing to his channel, so you get notified when he drops a video that, well, shall we say, plays around with this mod. But indeed, that is all I have time for today. Thank you very much for watching, with a special thank you to my channel members, especially Ark, Solar, Solemon, W Haste, Sebastian Haller, Churndog 2.0, Nick Huss, Dark Fortuna, Big Salad, Lab Josh, Gay Folk, Clockwork Norse, Golden Arrows, Nanhatan, The Awesome Rabbit, Best Pro Gaming, Grand Admiral Flavian, and Connor.